Hi everyone and welcome to yet another chill wrap-up. We're going to be talking about the books that I've read in the month of June. I know we're halfway through July. I know, and we're just gonna continue and do as if that's not a thing at all. I've read quite some books. I've read 8. And there are some bigger ones in there as well, but don't worry, 3 are part of one and the same trilogy, so we're going to deal with that one as a whole. You'll be glad to hear that I finally finished La Fortune du Rougon by Emile Zola and Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrel by Susanna, Clarke, both of which I've been talking about, I think, since, if not May, then April. So it was good to, at the beginning of the month, finally finish them. So we're going to start with those, because then we'll be done with them. So Jonathan Strange, Mr. Norrel, I'll be short, because I think I've already said a lot about it. Big chunker of a book. One that I should have read more in, well, not one go, that wouldn't have been possible, but instead of spreading it over at least 2 months, I should have read it more as one whole, because there's not a lot happening in this one. It's about these 2 magicians in England in the 18-something century, and magic has disappeared, but they want to get it back. They both have different characters, different personalities that at one point start to clash. It's a very funny book. There are a lot of very funny situations that I see as British humor. They're kind of ridiculous. There are some little, you can't see it. I've tabbed some things, but you can't see yellow tabs. The reason I think that I should have read it more in a smaller period of time is that there are periods in this book, there are whole sections where not a lot happens. And when you're taken out of the tempo, when you're taken out of all of these footnotes that will explain stuff within stuff, so I explained that, for example, you'll get the life of an author of a fictional book in the book. If you get drawn out of that being the world, then you just go back to the book and think, oh, I'm still only there. Wait, we've got a footnote of 3 pages, and then you skip it. But I think that those are the interesting parts, is how Susanna Clarke builds up this world and all of the little funny things and little funny situations within it. So, did enjoy it, thought it was too long, could have read it differently, but would still recommend it. I think this is a good one also for over the summer, to just have fun with and just read lots of pages. Now the other one, La Fortune du Rougon by Emile Zola. I loved this one. This is, again, said it plenty of times, but a French classic. It's the first one in a series of 20 books. You don't have to read them in order. Those 20 books are about a family called les Rougon-Macquart, and my family name is Macquart, so I've always been drawn to that series, and the other books that I've read I have loved, and this is the first time that I read a book from that series that is not well known. So I was a bit apprehensive, but I had heard by Tokiochemist, link down below, that she loved it. So I was I didn't have high expectations, but I was expecting not to be disappointed, and that was absolutely the case. I love this one. It's the origin book of the whole series. The characters that we will meet in the rest are all kind of being set up, if not themselves, then at least their childhood or the lives of their parents, through which you will understand the choices that they later make in the following books. Each character kind of has one, maybe sometimes 2 books that really focuses a little bit more on their lives and their situation and their social standing and stuff like that. And this one, like I said, we meet kind of the family. It focuses on, so the mater familias is Adelaide Fouque. She has 3 children by 2 different men, and it's the basic story of those 3 children and also them as adults that we will see in this book. So we have Pierre Rougon, him and the rest of his family are all mostly focused on wanting to have more power, wanting to escape their social standing, wanting to have money, and going to further length, longer, how do you say that? Going to longer length? doing stuff to get there, walking all over people to get there. Then we've got Antoine Macquart. He's the Macquart side. He is the poor side of the family. He's an alcoholic. He beats his children. You will see also that in his children. So he's the father of, what's her name? From L'Assommoir. Can't remember her name. And the third child is Ursule Mouret, and she has a very short life, and her strand will be mostly about being sick. So those are like the three strands of the family tree that you kind of see coming up, and the narration part of the book is mostly about Pierre and Antoine. They hate one another because Pierre basically stole Antoine's money, if you really say what the basis of it is, and you see that rivalry within a coup d'etat in France at the end of the 19th century that had to do with Napoleon III. Honestly, I didn't really understand a lot about that political clashing. It wasn't explained very well because it was written for the people at that time who knew what was going on. But I wasn't interested a lot in the politics anyway. I just liked seeing these brothers clash. And you also see that coup d'etat from the point of view of their nephew, Ursule's son, who is actually in the fighting and is feeling the beliefs of the people that are trying to uplift the country. Love this. I loved analyzing. I mean, my tabs are color-coded. I have tabs for stuff that happened to women that shows like their position in life. That was always interesting. I have tabs for stuff about like the actual characters and their character traits and stuff going from father to son and stuff like that. I have green tabs for stuff in sentences that I liked, and I have yellow tabs for overall stuff that happened. It was a joy. I like taking my time. I made a family tree for the whole of the family and even attached to each person what book they are then talked into. I'm so looking forward to seeing the rest of this whole trilogy over the years that are to come. I know that not all of the not as well-known books are going to be as good as this one, which is something I don't really know what I'm going to do with. Yeah, love this. And that doesn't mean to say I would recommend it. I mean, it's still a French classic by a white dude. This political thing is not really interested. He does make sure that you are invested in the characters and that you see their social standing so well. You understand this part of France in that time, but I'm not sure if your name is not Macquart why you would find that interesting. I don't know, but I absolutely loved this. I was going to be short, that is not going very, very well. Let's go to I've read also a lot of fantasy this month. So Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrel is one. I've also read the second part of the Broken Earth trilogy, the Obelisk Gate by NK Jemisin. In this one, we mainly follow two characters, a mother and a daughter. The mother, Esun, who we've also met in the first book, and her daughter, Nasun. They're both very powerful, and this is really a book that builds up towards what is going to happen in the third one, but not in a boring way. You know, sometimes with trilogy, the second book is a build up towards the third, but nothing really happens, and in this one, that was not necessarily the case. So Esun is simultaneously discovering a new side to her powers and discovering a new level to the world and the bigger forces in play and the war that is going on. And she's also at a more micro level. She's living in this cave where a community is being built where the people with the power to shift rocks and people that don't have that are trying to live together and are trying to survive the season. So that's kind of what's going on with her. And on the other hand, we have Nasun, who we haven't met in the first book. So she's Esun's daughter, and she's learning to control her powers. She lives in a small village with other children that are also Origines, and she discovers that her powers go a lot deeper, and she hates how the world treats her for it, and she hates her powers also a little bit. And you see slowly but surely how she is developing similar powers to her mother, similar strength also, but she's on the other side of the war. So it's a great build up to the third book. I will say, I read this while I had COVID, and I think that because of that, the characters and what was happening didn't always hit home. I wasn't super invested at least in them. And I think that some of the characters that are more on the margin of things, those draw my attention a little bit more. But again, I think that is a Corona-induced reading situation that I had at the time, and I'm looking forward to reading the third book. The trilogy that I talked about at the beginning of the video is the Farseer trilogy by Hobb. So that is, let me see if I can name them, because I'm not good at naming trilogy parts. So we've got the Assassin's Apprentice, that's the first one. Then there's the Royal Assassin, and then the Assassin's Quest, and I'm pretty sure those are the three names. So this one is set in a medieval fantasy world, and the powers that we have are kind of two sides, and our main characters has both. There's one power called... But what the people that have that power can do is that they can kind of read other people's mind and kind of push them to do different things, and they can communicate with other people that also have it. The second power that we have is a lot more secretive. There's a lot of shame attached to it, and people are looked upon for having that power. That is one where you can kind of commune with animals. You can bond to one animal in specific and share feelings, even share their sight and stuff like that. And it's one that people that have it are being oppressed. Now, in this book, we meet Fitz. Fitz is our main character that I talked about. He discovers that he is the bastard son of the prince in waiting. That prince then abdicates the throne, and Fitz is brought up in a castle where his position is a very weird one because he's a bastard, but so he's in line, but he's also not in line. He can be a threat, so he's being raised to be an assassin to the court, and then at the same time he's got these two powers that he also discovers. He discovers them mostly in the first book, and the rest of the trilogy it's about power struggles within this country. We've got one brother, prince in waiting, that wants one thing. We've got another brother that definitely wants to go in another direction. Fitz supporting one of them and discovering how big and brutal the world is. Hobb is a writer that one thing that she does very well is give her characters depth. So it was great to discover Fitz, and I know, so this is the first trilogy within a bigger world. There are two other trilogies that also talk about Fitz and his life, and he's a very well-formed character. He's not... You see him through his youth, and then you will also later on see him when he's an adult, and all of the stuff that he struggles with. And Hobb is also very good, not only at making these layered characters, but also at throwing shit at them. They grow through hell, and then they go back, and then they go back again. Especially the third book was just... In the third book, they kind of go on a trip at one point, and I mean, they couldn't make a step without shit happening. And that's why I think I struggled with the last book most, because these are chunkers. These are 30-hour listening chunkers. I have no idea how I finished all three of them in a month. Corona definitely had an influence, but I mean, there was just part of me thinking, I just want to get on with the story. I don't need him to... I mean, that's not really what happens, but I don't need him to lose another leg. I don't need him to go through another emotional or physical pain. It just keeps layering on. But it was a joy to read. It was a joy to discover this world that is not heavy in fantasy, where there are political things going on, there's lovey-dovey things going on. There's animals. Yeah, it was an enjoyable read, and I think it will stick with me, and I'm looking forward to reading the second trilogy. That is not about the same characters, but that is another part of this universe, and where magic is a lot more prevalent, because the Farseer trilogy is... It's not heavy-handed on the magic, it's mostly medieval power struggles. Let me see. Now, this book is genre bending, so there is a kind of sci-fi fantasy thing going on. This is The Cabinet by Eun-Soo Kim, and it's been translated from the Korean by Sean Lynn Halbert. This is the book that my book club picked, but because I had grown, I wasn't able to go to the evening, so that still saddens me. Anyway, like I said, genre bending. This one is one that makes you think about being a little bit unsettled in life and feeling detached from life. It's maybe more the word that I'm looking for. We meet Mr. Kong. Mr. Kong is someone that does not know what the hell he wants to do in life. He has no connections to others. He's feeling down, he's just going on. He even has a My Year Blushed rest and relaxation episode where he just drinks beers, I think, for a year. But at one point his life is lifted up when he finds this cabinet that holds the folders, what are they called? The files. Files was the word I was looking for. Files of symptomers. Symptomers are people that have special abilities, special powers, and it's about how they then cope with life. So we've got, and these abilities and powers are very weird. They're kind of realistic, but not at all at the same time. At the beginning, there's a note by the author, a warning saying, everything that is in this book is completely imagined. And I read that, I thought, yeah, duh. But when you read the book, there are a lot of things that sound like just evolution and or experiments that could have been done on people, which led to them having weird abilities. So it was good that that warning was at the beginning, because otherwise I would have thought a lot of the time in this book, oh, this could be true. So the kind of symptoms that we have, there's a man who grows a tree from his finger. There's a man that wants to become a cat. There are people that are kind of able to time travel, or at least they'll disappear and then reappear years later, or others will then fall asleep and just sleep for, it could be an hour, it could be months. So we've got a weird mix of things. We've got a woman that has a lizard instead of a tongue, and he discovers these files and he becomes interested in these people. He talks with them, he's got this hotline, and stuff kind of goes from there. But what is interesting, at least what I found interesting, is that because you have these people that are othered, they're othered through the things that are happening to them, they've got different ways of, I'm sorry, this is pretty covered, I want you to be able to see it, but the glare is not working with me. They've got these different lives, and they have different ways of coping with it. Some will completely embrace this thing that makes them different, and it will become the central part in their life, and they're kind of rolling with it. And others are struggling more, and it's something that will stop them from having the life that they kind of wanted. They've always got these different, and it's not obvious at all. This is all of this is underlying. It's a very understated novel, but they've all got this thing that makes their lives different. And it's very similar to what Mr. Kong has. Mr. Kong also feels detached from the world, but with him, it's something that comes from within. He doesn't have a lizard as a tongue that ensures that people look at him differently. But all of them have this thing that makes them feel unconnected. So that's what I liked seeing. Again, very, very, very nuanced. And it makes you reflect on the things in your life that also make you feel a little bit different from the rest, or that you feel like everybody's in a train and you don't even know where the station is, like kind of that stuff where the world is just turning and you're not feeling as if you're turning with it. It makes you reflect on what on that is in your head and what is imposed by others. That's kind of what I took from it. I think this is one of those books that, because it's understated, because there are different things going on but not really going on at the same time, there's not a lot happening, I think different people will take different things from it. I think, yeah, it was very interesting. I was not expecting stuff that happens in this. So would recommend. I think it's an interesting kind of read without being too much out there. The last book that I read is Petit Piment by Alain Mabanckou. This is one that I read for Invisible Cities and Reading Around the World. It's set in Congo, so I'll talk about it more in a video where I wrap up my reading around the world, but basically it's a coming-of-age story where we see the political situation in the Republic of Congo. That's all I'm going to say for now. And that's not all I'm going to say for now. It is a weird one. There are definitely positives and negatives. And look at this cover. Isn't it good? Okay, those were the books that I read in the month of June. It feels like I forgot one, but maybe it's because we're already halfway through July, so in the meantime, I've not read other books, but I've listened to other books, so it feels like I'm not talking about those at this time. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking. How's your summer been? My summer has been weird. I just came back from holiday a lot earlier than planned, but I'm reading all of these books. I'm feeling summery. I don't know if it is summer where you live, but I hope all is well. I hope you don't have the new corona wave that we've been having in the Netherlands, because it's not been fun, honestly. I mean, it could be a lot worse, but okay, I'm gonna stop talking. See you in another video. Bye.
Ba-chum, ba-chum, chum.